CVPR 2025 paper discussion, data collection for generalist robots. The name of the paper actually is Guiding Data Collection via Factored Scaling Curves. Paper comes out of physical intelligence, so that's why we're taking it seriously. It's an interesting paper actually, because here's the problem formulation. Like, we're training a robot, and what kind of data should we actually use to train the robot? And since imitation learning, which is the main technique applied here in this particular context, imitation learning is expensive. It takes time, it takes human labor, it's not scalable. So the question is there a space of robot actions that is tied to data? And can we find these factor scaling curves, which means that in certain robot contexts, certain data has more impact than others? In other words, there's more information within the data that's collected. So a good example is camera pose. So we have, let's say, one angle of camera pose when the robot is picking up a cup of tea and serving it to a person, right? We have one angle of camera pose. What if we had two or three? Does that help? Well, it turns out it helps because different angles help the robot guess better, predict better how to place the cup. What about the texture of the background? Is that important? Probably not. But the robot has to throw a ball into a place somewhere far. Maybe the texture of the background is more important than the texture in the foreground. So the idea is, again, we have, maybe the way I think about this is, how we have space-time. So we have 3 dimensions of space and then time. Maybe there's something like an action data space where you have this multiple dimensional space of actions and data, and it sort of varies, right? Certain actions, or let's call them tasks, require different types of data in order to be high performant. Now this, to be clear, all of this is predicated on an expensive data collection budget. If we have unlimited access to data, we don't care. We just use all the data and train the thing. And then I think another thing which is important is the relationship between data. So what they also noticed in the paper is that you have, for example, camera pose and table height could be important for tasks like picking up a cup of tea. So the relationship between 2 data points could be important for the task, which to me reminds me of the transformer idea of self-attention, where you look at the relationship between data points. The transformer idea was used in language, but we can kind of translate this into physical intelligence. So what I think is important here, again, is the idea that we have different types of tasks which can be performed through training of different types of data, and that is not all the same. They run experiments. They say that equal access to data is less performant than focusing on certain data. So these factor scaling curves could be very useful. Now, having said that, I just want to mention the context of Tesla. Elon Musk has said several times already that he is interested in video, YouTube, internet scale training robots from data, internet scale data, transferring third-person view into first-person view. But maybe there you could also argue maybe different types of transfers, first-person view, maybe even, hand angle view or limb angle view or things like that could be important. So there's a lot of different dimensions of the kinds of data we could use, and even the kinds of angles of the cameras that could be used, and the actual tasks. This is it's opening a really interesting research field, in my opinion, which is the relationship between the data and the training. And there was a paper on NeurIPS 2023, which I thought was really important. It came out of the University of Washington, which did exactly that. They always, the way they framed the problem is, we take the data as fixed, and then we tweak the algorithms and the hardware. So the stack is sort of, we have hardware and algorithms which are flexible, and the data is fixed. How about we also make the data flexible? We ask ourselves which data is more useful for given the certain algorithm for what kind of task. And I think from that perspective, it's interesting. But again, I think what Musk is trying to do, or what the industry is trying to do, whether, I mean, with Musk, it's clear with FSD, with Optimus, with X, the approach is always the same. He's following Jensen's law, just scale, 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 the bitter lesson. Let's not get entangled in, picking the right data for the right task. Let's try to generalize as much as we can and scale up the data collection, and then we will be fine. I think that's, of course, in robotics more difficult, and that's why Musk wants to go to internet scale YouTube data, because that could be a solution. If that's not a solution, I think this type of approach has more value. I'm taking physical intelligence very seriously, so whatever these people are doing, in my opinion, has a lot of value no matter what, because those are some of the leading researchers in the field, and they wouldn't be wasting their time with papers and work if they didn't think it's useful. But nevertheless, I think we just want to calibrate this whole situation and just remember that there are approaches that are more bitter lesson driven, and this approach is probably more like a smarter way to do robotics. Thank you.